once. Hey,
Okay, we are
great to
now
have you here.
live.
All right.
Okay, everyone. I'm excited about today's topic. I don't know about you, Tom. Actually, let me.
Well, this topic actually is something that I have to admit is really more your area of experience than mine, I
That was
think.
2 weeks in a row because last week was mine too.
That's all right.
We
I
got to get
mean,
yours in here.
no,
You
it's
were
all
covering
good.
me for a while when we were, when I was on jury duty. So you did a
Yeah,
lot of yours in
I
a row
did a
then.
lot for 6 weeks there in a row. Yeah, when you were on that.
Yeah. So
She
anyway,
was
it's my turn. So we usually space these out, but we like shoved them all into June, July because of jury duty. So anyway, we'll go on to. So let's get started with the episode, Tom.
all right. Hey everyone, welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazard, along with my co-host and better half Tracy Hazard, and today we're going to talk about 5-minute podcast vetting. Get on shows that matter fast. Now I have to say,
And get
Tracy,
guests on your show that matters because this one
okay.
goes both ways.
Oh well, that's a great point. And I have to say, Tracy, I don't know, and I truly, even with all the podcast customers we have, I don't know anyone who's been a guest on more shows or interviewed more people on their show than you. I really don't. So
I don't know. I think
you've
Scott Carson probably gives me a run for my
mm,
money on the Note
maybe,
Closer show. He's
maybe.
done a lot of podcasting. And Mark Hirschberg, who's been on my show, The Binge Factor, as a serial guest. I had him on when he had done his 90, I was his 99th guest, or he was my 99th guest. That's the way it is. He was my 99th guesting set that he had done. And then he's since done another couple hundred. So he's probably done the most on a guesting side where I've seen it be successful. So there's definitely those episodes that we could refer to. And for those of you who are usually in our group who is on Zoom at the same time that we're live streaming this podcast or you're listening to this on it, you're not getting the benefit of the normal quick links that are happening in the chat. And so they
Oh,
will be in the blog post for this episode at podcastersunited.org. You can absolutely count on that. We will get them there. So make sure you go to either the YouTube video and or the podcast blog and you'll be able to get those links because those episodes Nazanin will link them up for us. She's amazing at that. And I am she's off today, which is much deserved, but it's suffering from our like quick linking that we normally do.
yeah, usually we don't even have to mention anything. We mention something, she's researching it and putting the link in there. But
That's
anyway,
right.
like you said, they will be by the time this is airing as a podcast and a polished YouTube video. All those links will be there and the blog post, of course. So for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to go check those out because Mark Hirschberg specifically talks about how he built his list and did things together. And he did like a 5 article series that I've linked through some of those podcast blogs that really give you an idea on how he really did it. So if you're looking to do like a guesting series, like where you're going to guest on a bunch of them to market your book or market a product launch or something like that, you definitely want to do that. And then what I'm going to suggest is that you really do a good job of vetting that list that you're given because there are lots of companies out there, lots of VAs, virtual assistants, people who can pull a list together for you. But whether or not it's worth your time, give it 5 minutes per person per show.
All right, so let's talk about that. Yeah, you get a lot of solicitations, Tracy. You get a lot of people soliciting you, wanting you to be a guest on their show, or they're trying to pitch you to be a guest on your show. And you actually have a process on the Binge Factor, and you have a form that they need to fill out and apply first, because we want to make sure they meet certain minimum criteria as a podcaster before you have them as a guest. But I'm curious to know, you don't have a lot of time. Your time's very valuable. So this 5-minute podcast vetting, how are you doing that in 5 minutes? What's your
Well,
secret?
yeah, so I'm going to share that with you, but I want to share with where it starts. Usually I get an email or a direct message from someone, right? And I've got one that I'm going to use as my example today uh, because I got to vet them. So I'm going to vet them with you right on the air. But I
Oh,
got
awesome.
this one, and honestly, I probably wouldn't, if I wasn't doing this for you, I probably would have just discounted them.
Well, that's okay, but you're going to
Because,
show us maybe why, right?
yeah, exactly. So I get this very short, sweet, which I appreciate a short, sweet message. I do. I appreciate a short message. This one's a little vain. So like that's the problem, is it's a little too much about him and not enough about the value, right? So he says, as a podcaster for just over 5 years, I have a few achievements under my belt. From the top, Apple rated top 1% of podcasts worldwide. You know how much I hate that, because
we're gonna come
everyone
back to
who
that.
keeps podcasting can be a top 1% podcast. Acquired a global audience of 147 countries, 2,900 plus cities, multiple PR awards, frequent PR guest speaker. Okay, that's it. All I know is he talks, the podcast is called the Public Relations Review Podcast, by the way. So that's PR, makes sense in there. But that's it. Like, it's all about him. It's also stuff that pretty much I am in the know. Every podcaster has. Everyone makes some chart, has 147 countries. Like, it's nothing new.
Was there anything in that email? Now, we just heard it.
Yep.
But what I'm curious is, was there anything in that statement that was about what's in it for your listeners or for you to have him on your show?
No, but the last sentence he had for me, because this went to Podcasters United, was,
Right.
how can I participate in this organization? He didn't ask to be on my show. He asked to participate in Podcasters United.
So this wasn't a pitch for him to be on your show.
I think he probably uses it that way because of it looks like it's all like bold and stock.
Standard.
It looks like copy and paste, right? But the question wasn't. And so that was the only reason and because I had this episode today, that's the only reason we're betting him today. Otherwise, like I said, I would have completely ignored him, because nothing there is original. Nothing there is about what value he's bringing to my show, except that he'd been podcasting for 5 years. That does meet the profile of my show, right?
Right.
And he's a public relations expert, which we could use talking to one now and again, because every podcaster would like some publicity. So the topic hit me as of interest. So those are the only 2 reasons I'm giving him a second look, right? Okay. So now, once I see that, if it's worth a second look after the message that they send, then the first thing I do is I look at the show on the podcast app. So I'm going to share my screen because I prepped him up here. I'm going to share my screen. And so I typed in his podcast episode in here. And what I really like about what I'm seeing here is he's dominating the top results.
You're searching in what? Apple Podcasts?
Yep. And Public Relations Review Podcast. That's the name of his show.
He has... Okay, so this results is giving you episodes up top and then shows next.
Right. Now, watch what happens when I remove the word review, okay? He's still there.
Yeah.
So he's still there as a top result. So that's a good sign to me. Okay. So now I'm going to click and check out his show. He published an episode 2 days ago. He's already meeting my criteria because he's got to be actively publishing. He's got a bunch of episodes. He's got 150. Okay. 150, he's well over my threshold.
They're also all 5-star reviews, which
there's not a
50 is pretty hard to do.
Yeah, but there's only 5 reviews, so there's not that many.
No, I thought it was it's 150 episodes. I'm sorry. Only 5 reviews.
My bad. 5 stars out of 5 reviews. Not a big deal, but I don't really care about that because those are so easily bought, right? So the next thing I do is I usually will just very quickly look at this, the about section.
Tracy, unfortunately, when you show this way with Zoom, that doesn't show us. Yeah.
So it's this part that says an award-winning podcast with Peter Wolf discussing public relations topics, issues, and more with public relations professionals, educators, and vendors. That sounds pretty good. Like, it's very topic focused. It does mention the host name. No, it's a little bit longer. It's probably 400
characters, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. It's not super, super long. Unfortunately, everything after that first couple of sentences, which is fabulous, I mean, because it's really talking about what it's for, is everything that was in that email he sent me. And so to me, I'm like, so I'm questioning right at this moment in time whether or not this podcast is a vanity piece for him or is actually in service to his audience. I'm questioning that by this description. So now I got to dive deeper because it wasn't really obvious to me that he's providing tremendous value, right? So now I'm going to just do a quick glance down to his topics. He's obviously doing interviews, controlling your media interviews. That's a good topic. PR professionals guide to ethical AI. That's a great topic. Mastering data-driven public relations. All of the topics sound really good. The shows aren't very long. I could take a listen if I wanted to, but somebody who does 150 episodes, they're not novices. It can't be junk. And so it's just not worth my time to listen to it right at this moment in time. If I was going to be a guest on his show, I would take a listen because I'd want to know what the show style is about. But I'm inviting him on my show. I control the narrative, right? And I control everything. So it's not as necessary for me here. But if you're going to go on their show, take a quick listen, make sure the sound quality is good, make sure it's everything that you want it to be.
Okay, so those of you listening on the podcast, remember that Tracy was sharing her screen, and that's in the video. So when you go to the blog post on podcastersunited.org, you can either watch that video or you may be able to see some screenshots of some of the things that Tracy shared.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can do this yourself. Just hop on your favorite app. I usually do it on my phone. I was showing it to you on my desktop, but I usually do it on my phone. So it's really quick and easy to just hit play and listen to something and check out the sound. And usually I will listen to the intro, outro if I'm undetermined about whether or not the show fits my criteria, because if they have a really long intro or a bunch of ads at the beginning, it will have immediately told me that the show is all about them and all about their purposes and not about mine. And so it will make that choice for me. So it is worth a listen. Then we have, I'm going to go to the next thing that I do, which is basically check out Google it, right? Like, I mean, that's really what I'm going to do. I'm going to Google them. I'm going to check them all out, and I'm going to do it first from the show and then from the host if I need to. So that just to keep that in mind, that's how I do that. So the first thing I do is I Google Public Relations Review Podcast. It's right up at the top. So he's done a good job of getting his podcast placement. You'll see Apple, Spotify, Music. I'm going down below that because I want to make sure that he has a website, which he does. I want to make sure that he's also featured in other places. So related searches is where it usually ends up after all of those. Because when you're a syndicated show, all of the places people can find the show are listed. You're going to be below that. So then this is among the top, like March 26, 2024, Public Relations Review podcast among top one, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. That's current. So it's good. It's not old information. Same thing with the top public relations podcast for PR professionals. I mean, this guy is a PR professional. If he's not doing a good job of getting his podcast featured, then why do we want him on the show, right? Like I question that. 70 best PR podcasts you must follow in 2024. Again, current information. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Okay, I don't need to actually check out his name because I'm going to go to his website and that's going to tell me all about him. So I think I have that one here. Yep, I already have that tab. This is the tab for his website. So I'm looking at it. It's a podcast focused website. It's not just his business site. That's a good sign. That usually means that there's a blog there. So I'm going to check this out. I am going to check out his about page because I do want to just make sure that, he's someone of interest to me, right? So here he is. Okay, that he looks pretty interesting. He's got professional credentials, 25 years in public relations. He's from Washington, D.C. I'm looking at those. I'm also going to click whatever he has on his about page or at the top of his website is his social media. That's going to be one of the next things I check out. So typically I'll usually click it right now and open it in a separate window. But one more thing before I leave the website, I'm going to check out his blog. And the reason I do that is because if there aren't blog links, it's not of tremendous value to me. So if somebody doesn't do any blog from their podcast, for my particular purposes, I'm not going to get the great cross links to my website that I'm looking for. So I just want to double check and make sure he's producing some kind of blog. And wow, that looks pretty good. It's not long, but it's there. I don't see anything about particularly about.
Interesting how he doesn't.
Yeah, these are not his podcast interviews.
Well, that looked like it because it had the logo for the show.
Yeah, but I don't see any of the interviews. Here we go. Here's one. So I want to check out one with an interview. See,
Wow,
there's
he
no links
doesn't
to
feature the
people.
guest and no
Yeah.
links to that.
So
That's a
this would be
bad
one that I
sign.
would be like, I don't know if I want to have, do I want to have him on my show? He's not going to create a top level backlink for me. I typically would walk away from this, but he asked for a partnership, and there's an opportunity for me to educate him on how this could be so great. And him coming into our community and learning from us could be really good. So from a sales funnel perspective, he might be a really good prospect for what we do and definitely learning about what we do. So I'm not going to rule him out just yet. So now remember, after I go to the website, I'm checking for the sales focus on this website. I'm checking. So if it's too salesy, too much of a funnel, really a landing page and not a website, then I'm going to rule it out. And I'm checking for that blog. If there's no blog at all, red flag, I'm gone. If there's a blog, but there's no connection to your guest, I'm going to question whether or not it's worth doing. It may still be worth doing because the show association may be worth it, or a potential partnership conversation. So the conversation you have after the podcast could be worth it to you to continue on, but I'm going to make a call at that point. If it's a no, I'm done. If it's a yes, I'm going to go on to the next thing. Remember, I saved their social media. So the next thing is I'm going to check out LinkedIn. I want you to click, if they've got like every social media under the sun like we do on ours, you click the one that matters to you. If Instagram matters to you, if LinkedIn matters to you, click the one that matters to you the most to make sure that the connections to the audience you're looking to achieve. So if he had Instagram, he only had Twitter and LinkedIn. But if he had Instagram there and I'm looking to grow my Instagram audience, then I want to click through and check out his Instagram. But I'm comfortable with LinkedIn. It's where we get our most clients from. If there's promotion happening on LinkedIn, great. It's doing a good job for me. Fantastic. I'm going to click there. So that's what I'm going to check out because I'm only going to spend time on one social channel. I'm not going to check them out everywhere. I'm trying to do this quickly. So Peter's got a decent looking. He's got 1,300 followers, 500 plus connections. That's good. He's got more followers. He's got a good amount of followers, which means that they aren't necessarily connected to him. I'm going to go down. He's got like white papers and stuff. That's pretty interesting. So that shows some amount of, kind of in that education piece that he's doing. That sounds really good. He's showing off his episodes in his posts. That's great. He's showing off his episodes. What do you think of this podcast? He's asking questions. He doesn't really tag properly here, but it's not bad. And you could certainly make a comment back if you were the guest and start to keep it moving and do things like that. So I'm not seeing a lot of engagement on it, but that's okay. To me, the important part is it's getting posted out to a new audience. So if you don't see it right up here at the very beginning of this activity section, you can click show all posts. So I'm really looking at his follower count and I'm looking to make sure that he's really currently posting, that he does share his podcast. And it looks like pretty much he shares his podcast all the time. So that's a really good sign right there. So already moving farther ahead on that. So we looked at the show in the podcast app. We Googled him. We Googled the show. We went to the website. We checked out the blog within that website. Then we went to check out primary social media, did a little check on that. And from there, we were checking their follower counts and and how often they post and what types of things that they post. Last thing is, I'm going to invite him on the show. He's going to get an invitation. So I make a real quick reply answer and I have a absolutely simple URL to send him, which is, basically invite. And I send it back and said, come on the show. I don't do any explaining. I don't do anything because he solicited me. So there shouldn't be much explanation. If they come back with a bunch of questions or anything like that, I'm done. They're out. It needs to be low hassle at that point and quick and easy for me.
Well, so two things I'm thinking, Tracy. First of all, that obviously took longer than 5 minutes, but you're talking about it. You're demonstrating what you do. You're not just doing it, right? So I really do think you could do that in 5 minutes. So that's I'm pleased to see that. And of course, you've done this so many times. You know exactly what to do. You don't have to like think about what to do. You're not going through a checklist or anything. You just you know what to do, right?
No, and honestly, you can do it straight from the podcast app. It actually used to be a lot easier when I had Google Podcasts. It's a little cumbersome now with some of the other apps, but when I'm in the podcast app, when I search for the show and I see top episodes, top shows, and then I click on the show. Usually when I click that about, it'll have the website link right below it. You can click right through the website. I still check them out on Google because I want to see how they're ranking and what they're ranking for. And I also, if there was any kind of red flags, such as a scam or criminal activity or anything like that, it should come up to the top. And so I want to make sure I'm not associated with someone I don't want my name associated with. So I do want to Google them, but I can straight click the website from there, go check out the website, then straight pop in. If you're doing it all on your phone, it's really fast because then you just pop into your social media and you check them out in social. And then you can friend them right there and you can just DM them and say, hey, come on the show. I saw your email. Like it's so you can make it really simple and fast when you do it that way.
So thank you, Tracy. That's very helpful. The second thing I want to mention, and I'm going to do it because this is a pet peeve of mine, is that in that email where he said he was a top 1% podcast on Apple, if I remember it correctly. Was it
That's what
that
he said.
specific? Okay. To me, my red flag goes up, sort of my BS meter starts to, go up to the red.
I think it goes up worse for me when they say they're that on Chartable. Like it's
Well,
higher for me there than it is on Apple.
well, look, I mean, Chartable rankings are real, but I mean, well, they're not rankings, though. They're just chart positions. And here's the thing, that to people that don't know any better, that sounds great, but it's also not a stat anybody can verify. It's not like you get a badge from
Well,
Apple
I
that
didn't
says you're a
read this
top
part.
1% podcast. Is
I
there
didn't read
more?
this part, but in parentheses, it actually said Buzzsprout data, which is even more suspect because if he's hosted on Buzzsprout, Buzzsprout is just like, blowing smoke
They're
and giving
not the
them like things that make
authority
them want to
of
stay.
what's a top 1% on Apple. And quite honestly, look, and I'm going to say this in the podcast, but I will put an asterisk or a caveat on this, that Apple's always updating their app. They're updating their OSs, depending on which OS you're on and what app. Things may have changed by the time you hear this, or it may change tomorrow. But I don't think Apple really tells you what percentage you are of all their podcasts. I think that is a interpretation of data somebody's making that's highly
But this
suspect.
is
What we usually
Buzzsprout's
hear.
interpretation of that data. And that's who's telling them that that's what it says. It's just like if you go Chartable and Chartable says that you're ranking like this on
Well,
Apple.
no, but if you're ranked on in Chartable, they do have a direct integration with Apple, and if you're, number 75 in your category, that's fine, but that doesn't tell you what percentage you are of all the shows in that category. It's just what your rank is. And most people tend to cite what they're in the top whatever percent according to listen notes. And
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the
that
one
one
that
drives me
really
even more
drives me
crazy.
nuts, because it's really a percentage of all 4 million podcasts that are out there in the ecosystem. And it's very easy to be in the top 10% or the top 5% when you consider all
or the top
older
1% if you've done over 100 episodes.
and all the dormant, no longer publishing new episodes, shows that are out there. If you're publishing episodes on a regular basis, you're already in the top 10% of all podcasts. So you could be doing that badly and be in the top 1% of podcasts, 10%, sorry, of podcasts. So anyway, that kind of thing is suspect because there's no real sort of quantifiable certification that that statement is got truth behind
Well,
it.
and I think that that's the point to my vetting process here to kind of wrap this up for everyone, Tom, is that my point to the vetting process is that I don't really care what you want to tell me about your show. I need to know why your show is going to make a difference for my purposes. Whether your show, you coming on my show, is going to make a difference to my audience. It's going to make a difference to what I want to talk about. It's going to make a difference to what we do. I want to make sure that that's going to happen. Or if I'm going on your show as a guest, I want to make sure it's actually going to achieve the goals I have. And that cannot be told by a bunch of charts and numbers and stats, because honestly, I don't believe your stats. I don't believe your numbers. And I'm in the podcasting industry. Like, this is what we do. I know they're all bull. And because I know that, that doesn't, and I know that I can get just as much value from a show that has 100 listeners than I can from a show that has 100,000 listeners. If it's the right show with the right audience, then I have to vet for that. That's what I'm looking for.
All right. Well, that makes perfect sense. And I think that's some valuable suggestions that you provided to the audience. So you definitely want to go check that out in the blog post on podcastersunited.org. Not only to see some of the things that Tracy shared in video, but also links to a few things. And you have that form, Tracy, that
I
you
actually
use,
don't have a
or
form for
don't have
this,
a
but I
form?
saw a note in the chat that said we should have one. And I mean, it's a 5-step thing. So I could certainly put one together. So I will work on that with the team and hopefully we'll have it done by the time this airs as a podcast.
Yeah, might as well just spell it out there. Cool. All right. Well, I hope everybody got some good value out of that. And so you can, really have a roadmap for, and I think consider for yourself what criteria are important to you. I don't think, Tracy, you're saying everybody has to subscribe to what you think is important. Every show is unique, and you may have reasons for inviting someone on your show that are different, or reasons why you may want to go on a show or not go on
Yeah.
another show
Yeah,
that are different to
absolutely. Look,
you, right?
yeah, you've got to make this relevant and a right fit for you. Like, so I have my criteria. I already know what it is. They have to have 100 episodes or more. They have to be consistently posting every week. I don't do shows that are under 15 minutes. That's way too short. Even 15 minutes is borderline for me. And so, I just have this criteria, but I've developed it over time because I found that that's the right type of show, the right type of person for me. You may not know in the beginning, but trust your gut. Because when you go, that sounds so much all about them, or like, gosh, that just sound like constant pushy sales when I listen to that show, you'll start to get your own criteria and you'll be able to develop it. And that's why I said if I'm at all wondering about a show and I just listen to it, I'll know instantly that which way they're going. Is this all about sales? Is this all about them? Or was I maybe mistaken about that? And maybe they just had a really bad advisor who wrote a bad description for them. It happens all the time. So that's why I don't always judge the show by, I this one I would have judged by the cover art and gone, really bad cover art, but I didn't. So that's also something. Take your gut on the cover art, take your gut on, the title of it. If it's not the fit, go.
It's
And
hard to do that though, because sometimes people are just so uninformed.
I know.
They
That's why I
haven't
have a
been
hard time
coached
with
well,
it.
even though they've got good content, they got lousy cover art. What does that tell me? That doesn't tell me the show is always bad, but it tells me, gee, you could be being heard by a lot more people if you had a better cover art, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it is. And that's why I don't always judge that way. But if at the end of the day you looked at it and you go, I don't want to be associated with that, then don't, right? Like that's it. That's why you want to go look at it. Because if you look at it and you go, definitely not. Like, because if you're embarrassed or it's just not a good fit and you to share it with your audience, then you're not doing that host any good.
The worst is when the cover art is just somebody's headshot and that's all it is. There's no words, there's no text, no nothing,
Yes.
but they filled the entire square with their face. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
That's why
Give
I'd
me
rather see
anything.
words like this guy's, right? I'd rather see words like this guy's, and at least it's something. But it also looks like an educational journal, right? It looks like a journal of some kind, so it fits the model. So there's nothing really wrong with it, and it's bright yellow, so it's catchy, and so anyway, the right fit for you, you'll know when you start doing this, and you'll get really quick at it. So good luck with everyone. I hope you reach out to more shows because one of the best ways for you to grow your show is to do a guest swap where you invite a host on your show and you go on their show. So get someone that's a right fit because if it's a right fit for you, it's a right fit for them. And it makes a fabulous swap. And that's one of the fastest ways to grow your show.
All right, why don't we leave it there? That's a great way to end the
End it all.
episode. Go
All
into the
right.
outro
Well,
right
live
there.
stream. Thank you, world, for listening. We are going to go into our community right now and talk to everyone at Podetize about what questions and problems and issues and things that they're looking to solve with their podcast and see what we can do about it. So we're going to be over there coaching our group. Thanks, everyone.